Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining our June California Brokers Business Accelerator. Can't believe I'm saying it's already June. We're already halfway through the year. But today's Business Accelerator is hosted by our California brokers, Michelle Beeson, Thomas Bullock, and Ryan Rosas. Today, our brokers will be discussing COVID-19 new procedures and forms. Before we get started, I do just want to remind you of our wonderful SharpTC in-house transaction coordinators. SharpTC not only will be your transaction coordinator throughout your entire transaction from start to finish, but when your transaction closes, your clients will receive a closing gift box directly from you, but you don't have to lift a finger. SharpTC does all the work for you. Each transaction done with SharpTC is only $400, but you can get your first transaction done for $250. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., we will be hosting a national webinar with a panelist of Allison James agents. We have Michelle Bean, Lisa Jeffers, and Eddie Sanchez joining us tomorrow. They will be speaking about their success obtaining listings and going under contract during these virtual times using a number of different tools such as Facebook Lives, virtual tours, and more. I will go ahead and post the link to register for this webinar in the Zoom chat of this webinar, so you'll get a quick little notification when I do that. If you haven't registered yet, please do. You won't want to miss this webinar. Today's webinar is sponsored by our preferred lender, Movement Mortgage. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started with our California Brokers Business Accelerator. This presentation will be a introduction from all of our brokers, and then we will make sure to get all of your questions answered at the end. So if you do have any questions during this presentation, you can type them in the chat box on your Zoom control panel, and we will do a Q&A at the end of this presentation. I will now pass it over to our brokers, starting with Tom Bullock. Good morning, Tom.
Hi, Tori. Good morning to everyone. I hope everybody's having a great morning so far, as well as a great week. The reason we wanted to cover the COVID-19 documentation and practices is that there seems to be a growing amount of miscommunication or misinformation that's being passed around out in the general field. And we wanted to make sure that everybody who joins us today is clear on not only the documentation, but also the practices that we need all of you to follow. Please keep in mind, this is not a mandate that comes down from Allison James. It's a mandate that comes down from Governor Newsom, as well as the CAR, C-A-R, with regards to better practices and documentation. One of the miscommunications all three brokers have heard is that open houses, general type of open houses, are okay to do now. That's false. The mandate, both with CAR as well as the governor, clearly states that no open houses can be conducted during the current COVID-19 practices and best procedures. We just can't do them yet. There's no variation or offshoot of what you might want to try to accomplish with an open house. But keep in mind, when CAR as well as the governor makes a mandate of this type, and agents with other brokerages are out there doing open houses, they can get reported, number one. And number two, that sets them up for liability on a number of different avenues, and one being financial liability. If they're not following the best practices by the DRE and CAR, they jeopardize their license, as well as some other type of legal action that can be taken against them and their brokerage when it comes to violating the governor's mandate as well. So, if you have any questions, if anything comes up where you might hear that it's okay because other people are doing it, call your broker, call Michelle, call Ryan, call me, and say, hey, listen, I'm hearing that we can do open houses again. Is it true or not true? And we'll give you the update as far as that particular moment in time. Another good source is CAR, car.org. If you go into car.org, they always keep an update there as to the current practices, what can and cannot be done. So please keep that in mind. Any questions, again, reach out to your broker, and everything will go forward from there. The other thing I just want to throw out a little bit of a flag on is make sure you check your zip forms with regards to using the current forms when it comes to the coronavirus type documentation. The DRE and CAR are changing that constantly. So you definitely need to check to make sure you are using the current form. I've had a couple of agents respond to me that they sent an old, outdated form and it got returned to them by the listing agent. So you don't want to have that embarrassment. So again, please check weekly the CAR forms just to make sure what you're sending out with regards to the PED and other forms are current and up to date. Michelle, do you want to take over for a bit?
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for joining us today. I do need to jump off the meeting a little early, so I appreciate Tom letting me jump in here. The one thing I want to discuss really quickly is that there is a new BPPP, so that's the Broker Best Practices kind of document, which you guys should be very familiar with now. You're supposed to be having that in your MLS. CRMLS will put you let you put it at the end of the pictures. So they have updated that, and I want to share some really good news. So I get to share the good news, which is awesome. Is that now the responsibility of cleaning before and after each showing falls on the showing agent. So listing agents, you no longer have to, find a way to get somebody to clean before and after every showing. The only exception to that, guys, is that if your seller does not want to leave the premises, even if they go outside in the backyard or in the front yard, if the seller is going to be there at the premises, then the responsibility falls on the seller. So it's either going to be, if there's nobody there, or if it's a vacant property, you're going to have the showing agents clean before and after. If the seller does not leave completely, then it's their responsibility. What is still your responsibility as a showing agent, as a listing agent, is to provide the cleaning materials. So you still have to have the sanitation wipes and the hand sanitizer there. Should have some extra masks there, just so, in the event they don't come with their own, you can make sure that they're at least provided for them, so you remain compliant as a listing agent. I think the only other thing I want to touch on too is on the new PED form. They revised the PED form, so please, again, make sure that you're choosing the right one. And unfortunately, in CAR forms, they still have several listed there. So you have to hover over and make sure you're using the right one. And the last revision, I believe, was on the PED-V on the 20th of this month, so just a few days ago. So make sure you guys are using the right PED. Also, I'm trying to cram everything in here, and I'm sure Tom and Ryan can answer questions if I've jumped off by then. But it's a buying party now, so we're not limited to 2 people per showing anymore in the agent. It's buying party. So I've had a lot of questions about what constitutes a buying party, and they don't actually specifically define it. So what our suggestion is that if they're on the contract or they belong to the buyers, as far as minor children, that's a buying party. The buyer's parents don't count as a buying party. We still need to limit the amount of people in there. So a buying party would be who's on the contract and their minor children. If you look at the PED-V, you will see on number 7, it addresses minor children, and you are to name those minor children on number 8. So you do need to get the names of everybody who's going to be accompanying you on a showing. You need to discuss the guidelines with your client, so they're not trying to bring their cousin and their cousin's best friend. And yeah, that's about it. Make sure you identify those minor children on number 8 to remain compliant. So that's about it for me. Thanks.
Ryan, do you have anything you want to throw in here?
Yeah, great. You guys covered a lot of fantastic information there. The only other thing that I would add is that we need to make sure that every person going into the property is signing a PED. So that does include inspectors, appraisers, anybody who's going to be doing maybe work. So maybe the pest clearance needs to be done. We should be gathering a PED for everybody. And I know that is a lot of work, However, it is really designed to protect the seller and you and your license to ensure that if anything ever comes back, everything has been fully disclosed in accordance with these forms that CAR and the governmental mandates have created for us. But that's all I really had to add.
The next part I'd like to just kind of cover briefly here is when it comes to the documentation. For example, the CVA. Keep in mind that if an agent makes an offer on your listing, and in that offer they include the CVA, you can present that, you have to present that to the seller. However, if the seller is not in agreement with it, you have the ability to counter offer that particular document out of the offer. In other words, if the entire offer is acceptable except for the CVA, you can do a counter offer countering that out. So keep that in mind. Just because it's presented at the beginning with the offer, you're not obligated to accept that, or the seller, I should say, is not obligated to accept that as a part of or a contingency of the sale. Make sure.
Oh, Tom, can I add something really quick on that in that respect?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
only thing that is not mandatory, that is mandatory, guys, is the PED. The PED is no longer optional. You have to have a PED. It's required now by law, but everything else as far as the coronavirus documents are optional except for that PED form.
And that also includes for you as the listing agent as well, or as the buyer's agent. So we should, if you have a listing, we should have a PED S for the seller, and we should also have a PED V for you, and for, again, for anybody else that comes to the property.
And then when it comes to the bottom of the PED, the last on page 2, at the bottom where they have the initials, make sure you, the agent, initial that you're in receipt of the completely executed PED. You don't need to get the broker's initials on that, as when you upload that into SkySlope as a part of the documentation for the file, we acknowledge that when we accept the file or accept that particular file or document. So again, you can send it to the broker, but it's not necessary. As long as you initial that you're in receipt of a fully executed PED, you'll be fine. The other documentation I believe is necessary is the listing agreement, the coronavirus addendum or amendment to the listing agreement. It's always good to, I think, to present that to the seller while you're taking the listing. Kind of gives them a heads up as to what to anticipate, what will take place, and it puts it into writing so that at least they're acknowledging that you presented it, you talked to them about it. And, again, that gives you credibility with the seller, that you're on top of the game and you're there to not only sell their property, but to take care of them as a client as well. Do you have anything you want to add to that, anyone?
No.
No, I'm good. Sounds
Okay.
good to me.
Okay, cool. Just keep on top of the forms. If you have any questions regarding best practices, procedures, or if you hear a wild rumor out in the field that you can, for example, do open houses, no bars, no bar hold on any of that, call your broker before you launch into action. Call your broker, make sure that whatever it is you're hearing is correct or not correct, and your broker will either have the answer or will go get an answer and get right back to you. But it's vitally important that we follow the mandate as presented to us by CAR and by the governor. And, it's an ever-changing climate out there when it comes to these documents that we've all witnessed since April. So,
yeah, real quick, Tom, I just want to emphasize that he's absolutely right. All three of us were just talking before this call about how we get calls from our agents, and they're being told by agents from other brokerages about how it's not quite so strict out there and how they don't have to do this or they don't have to do that. And it's absolutely not true. Those other agents are putting themselves and their clients at risk. So if there's ever a question or you do hear a rumor, please call us. Tom's absolutely right on that because we stay on top of it all the time.
And one last thing I just happened to think of, we've mentioned here already that make sure you use up-to-date forms. The reverse of that's true. So when you receive some of these documentations, these COVID-19 documentation, make sure whatever is being sent to you is up to date as well. If it's not, send it back. Only use the updated forms. Tori, do we have any other questions?
Yeah, actually, Michelle actually already answered this one, but I want to answer it for everyone else. We had a question that was asked, how can the agents or brokers be turned in if you're not following the procedures mandated by CAR? Michelle had answered that in the chat. Other agents will usually turn you in. Do you guys have anything else you want to add to that?
No, I don't have anything.
Perfect. And then you guys can confirm this as well. Are the COVID-19 forms already added into the SkySlope checklist for California?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. And I will leave the questions open real quick before we do more questions. We do have Cheryl Zensky here from Movement Mortgage, who is going to give just a couple minute presentation of just let us know what's going on in the mortgage world when it comes to COVID-19. So Cheryl, I'm going to pass the mic to you for a few minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. What we are seeing is in the marketplace now, our rates are phenomenal. As most of you know, we're quoting in the low threes, even in the twos. Best rates, our best credit scores are definitely in the twos, and as low as 2.5 I'm seeing. So it kind of depends on the program, but we are seeing definitely the twos now for folks purchasing homes. Even refinances are doing that. COVID-19 guidelines that have become so strict are starting to ease off. We are still required to verify employment 2 days. Me as a loan officer still have to verify employment 2 days prior to closing, just to verify that nobody's been laid off, since that was happening quite a bit at the very beginning. But things that have eased off are the guidelines. We're going back to normal, back down to on VA and FHA, back down to the 580 credit score. We're seeing a lot more exceptions and things like that being approved now, where everybody was really strict. Even the bank statement only loans are coming back. What we're not seeing too much of yet is jumbo. Anything depending on the county that you're in, the county limit can go up to 700 plus. Depending on the county, we're seeing jumbo loans still being strict. So just talking with with me or with anyone else, making sure that the borrower is getting the best deal that they can. And then remember that Movement does do rescue loans. So we are committed to helping and coming in at the last minute and being able to still close the loan on time. And then the very last thing I wanted to talk to you, we're extending through July 31st, our frontline program, where we're giving up to $2,500 for closing costs to any frontline person who is working in EMS, fire department, police department, nursing, any of those fields. We are helping them with additional $2,500, and they can even do that with a refi. So that's about it that I have.
Cheryl, excellent presentation. I have a quick question for you. Do you have second home financing? I'm starting to see more and more of that.
Yes, absolutely we do. And the cool thing is for second home, oh, you mean secondary like in second loans or second homes?
Second homes, like if you're in San Diego, for example, buying a home in the desert up at Arrowhead.
Yes,
or Big Bear.
Absolutely. And the cool thing about those is that's the same pricing as owner occupied.
Cool.
Yeah, we do.
Great. Thanks, Cheryl, for joining us and giving that small little presentation. Tom, was there anything else you wanted to go over before we go into Q&A?
No, I believe I've covered everything I wanted to cover today with regards to the COVID-19.
Okay, perfect. I'm not sure if this was answered already. Do the agents have to put PED forms into SkySlope just for showings?
We need to keep a copy of all PEDs. So if it's for showings on a listing, just, you can upload them all to the same PED line. You don't need to put them anywhere else. And then for our buyers, basically once we find a property for those buyers and we go into contract, we should be uploading the PED form for that property into that transaction as well.
Perfect. Can you guys talk talk a little bit more about the specific forms that relate to COVID?
So specifically, there's the RLA CAA, which is the coronavirus addendum to the listing agreement. There are the PEDs, which we talked about a little bit in length today. So there's both the PED-S, which is for the seller, and there is the PED-V as in Victor or visitor for anybody else that's going through the property. There will be the notice of unforeseen coronavirus circumstances. So if the coronavirus addendum CVA has been executed and there has been some type of circumstances that is impacting the transaction, whether it needs to be an extension of escrow or a cancellation, the notice of unforeseen coronavirus circumstances form NUCC can be used in that case. I personally haven't seen any. I don't know if Michelle or Tom have. I haven't seen any transactions actually been impacted by COVID to the point where they've been canceled or had a need for the NUCC form. But perhaps in other areas that has taken place. But those are the main forms that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and if you go into your ZIP forms and just put in under search coronavirus, all the forms will pop up and you can kind of take a quick glance at those to see what, if any, might be appropriate for what your thoughts are or what your purpose is.
And you can always call us and ask too if you have questions.
Okay, perfect. So it looks like we got all of our questions answered for today. Let me just double check that. Yeah, it looks like we got all of our questions answered. Just as your broker said, if you guys do have any questions, please go ahead and reach out to your broker directly. They're always available to answer your questions. That's exactly what they're there for. Again, I appreciate everyone for joining us for this month's California Brokers Business Accelerator. We will continue hosting these types of webinars as long as you all have questions about this kind of stuff. So look out for next month's California Brokers Business Accelerator as well. Again, Cheryl, thank you for joining us and giving us a little update on the mortgage world, and we will continue to host things with Cheryl as well as things continue to change. Thanks to all of our brokers for your wonderful insight as always, and for organizing today's topic and presentation. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Bye.
Thanks so
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.